Real estate tycoon Donald Trump. The Washington Post reports Trump will release a summary of his financial assets after a rally today in New York City.
Donald Trump, obviously, Willie Geist, a lot of people have said he would not want to get out there because he wouldn't want to reveal how much money he's worth.
He just did.
He just did, $9 billion.
Oh,
which takes me back to, again, one of the great press conferences of our time, where Donald Trump assembled everybody when he was going bankrupt, supposedly. And a reporter asked him a question. He goes, "Who are you to ask me that question? Have you ever been in debt $9 billion? You know nothing about this. I am an expert on it." He even embraced his debt. But, you know, anything can happen in this field. Anything can happen. You know, Donald has sort of been a punching bag for a long time because he's always said he was going to do it, and then he backed off. It's just like I said about Chris Christie a couple months ago. You never know if somebody, when they get into the bigs, can hit the curveball or not. And you can say they suck, you can say they're a joke, you can say they're a double-A player, but when they get into the bigs and they throw the curveball and they hit it over the fence, suddenly that changes everything overnight. People just don't remember how much of a joke, a total joke, Ronald Reagan was with the national media. Say whatever you want to say about whatever candidate. When it's this close, anything can happen.
Yeah, and these polls, we have to remember, again, we're 17 months away from Election Day. It does feel like yesterday with Jeb Bush getting in, Hillary Clinton with her official launch over the weekend, that it has started in earnest, but we still have a long way to go, and 20% of the voters, which we didn't see on that poll, are still undecided. So there's going to be so much shaking out between now and even a couple months from now. Forget, you know, Iowa and South Carolina. It's going to be a totally different race. We just don't know yet.
Like everything else Trump, his announcement was a spectacle. Held at Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, locked down by dozens of security officers, supporters allowed in only after they put on a T-shirt.
Can you all vote in America?
But can you vote in America?
No, I can't, unfortunately. Only in Finland.
Inside, Trump's name and face were everywhere. His new cologne summing up his message.
I want to ask you, he has this cologne, it's called Success. I was wondering if can I try?
Sure.
Wondering what you think it smells like. For men, obviously.
Wow. It smells like, you know, attraction.
What does it smell like?
Success. Money.
After the event, Trump was getting on one of his signature private planes to fly to Iowa, where success usually takes a little humility.
They're right about that, but I'm doing it.
Ross Perot is a much more substantive example, too. He actually raised some specific ideas that generated other people to think about those ideas. Can we stipulate for the purposes of this conversation that Donald Trump will never be president of the United States? That his lethal danger to the Republican Party, we just showed it, and we're in on it. We just gave him 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Then why are you, then I'm not sure, you know what? We just gave him 5 minutes when Jeb Bush, didn't he announce? Let's ask Michael Steele. What do you think of this latest addition to the Republican field, Michael?
This is going to be one of those rides that I think Joe and both Casey have touched on, those aspects that are going to matter to the GOP. There is real concern within rank-and-file establishment leaders that this becomes a circus, that this becomes more about the cult of personality than actually running for the presidency of the United States. Donald Trump's speech yesterday, if that is the approach that he's going to take, it will lend itself more to cult of personality, which could be a problem when you're standing on that stage trying to have a serious debate.
Following up on what Casey said, he is popular among some rank and file in the GOP. And to follow up on Mike's question, yeah, we gave him 5 minutes. He's in New Hampshire. He's near the top of the polls. And he beats a lot of people that are more established politically and play by the political rules of Washington. I just don't know. I think there may be a vote this year that might actually make him a player.
And that is a key point, Joe, and that's what has a lot of people nervous, because it goes to the fact that he has, despite the poll, the most recent poll that showed that 59% of GOP voters in the primary said they would not vote for Donald Trump, there's a significant base for him to work from, and that base will light us up. It will be excited about him, and it's a real problem going particularly into those early debates if he's on that stage, because the argument is going to be framed by Donald Trump. not a Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio or others.
So, you know, Mike just asked the question, will Donald Trump ever be president? You could ask the same question of Bernie Sanders. Will Bernie Sanders ever be president? And yet over on the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders may not be elected president, but he could cause a front runner who's supposed to be elected president some sleepless night and some dangerous days.
So let's talk. How does he impact the field? And what do you make of his rollout? By the way, everyone's leading with it and everyone's interested in it. People chuckle, but should they chuckle too hard?
Sleepy eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Well, look, I think I feel bad for the rest of the Republican field. You know, what's interesting about him is that behind the scenes, you have a party apparatus, you have candidates who hope that he doesn't run, who basically are treating him as the skunk at the garden party. If he's standing there on stage next to the next Republican nominee and they have to answer for things that he said, like he said on Mexico. And remember, we're only 4 years removed from him being a birther and all of that nonsense. Look, I think it's a potential to embarrass the future nominee. Having him on stage, having to answer. I mean, what he said about Mexicans was said about the Irish 100 years ago. I mean, this is standard ways you are prejudiced against immigrants. Unfortunately, it's a very old way of describing immigrant populations when people are upset. So, look, and then you look at, you talked about everybody's leading with it. I think this is the danger here, and I think all of us in the news media have to have that conversation. Yes, he is giving voice and anger, channeling some of the anger and frustration that's out there with some people. But does he deserve the platform? Has he earned the platform to be taken as a serious presidential candidate? I think the burden of proof is on him. I don't think he did himself any good yesterday to prove that he's being serious about this.
Mark, what questions does he raise, and who does he tap into?
I go back to the roller derby metaphor. We don't understand the dynamics of this Republican nomination fight. He draws big crowds. He has a lot of money. He could start running negative ads now, tens of millions of dollars against some unfortunate other Republican. He was embraced last time. Mitt Romney accepted his endorsement. Since the last election, he's been courted by the Republican National Committee. Many of the other candidates are regularly in touch with him. So,
Mitt Romney accepted his endorsement.
and stood with him. And Ann Romney stood there. So the Republican Party owns him, and he's likely to be on the debate stage. And as you saw yesterday, he will, in a stream of consciousness fashion, go after anyone who he wants to. And I think the party is going to have to grapple with the things he talks about, but also his ability to dominate, as you said. He can dominate the news any day he wants, and that's not true of too many other people in the race.
Casey, you were there. What did you see happening in that room or kind of announcement space?
You know, Mika, it was a pretty classic. I'm trying to resist using the word Trump-tastic, although I guess I just did. But everything about this was Donald Trump, right? I mean, and Jon Stewart was on there saying, on his show last night saying, well, I guess I'm going to go out on a strip of comedy morphine. I mean, the fact that he's jumped in gives everyone an opportunity to really, perhaps a little bit of comedy gold. But
Casey, and you've seen this in the campaign trail. You'll have everybody ridicule him and say, oh, this is just a joke, this is blah, blah, blah. And then he'll go to South Carolina, and he'll have a bigger crowd than every other established candidate. And then he'll go to New Hampshire, and he'll have a bigger crowd than every other established candidate. And yeah, I don't know about Iowa, but I think he's done pretty well in Iowa, and people want him out there too. Like you said, the proof's in the pudding that if people think he's going to get 1% and crawl away with his, head between his tail, they probably have it wrong.
Scott Walker has been in touch with him. He was on the phone yesterday after his announcement with Florida Governor Rick Scott, who called to congratulate him on getting in. So I think to write him off completely as a player in this is not quite the right way to go.
Michael Steele, do you agree?
I do, and I think it's in large measure they don't want the noise, but the noise is going to come, as we saw yesterday. Now the question becoming, I would not be surprised if some of the candidates are asked today, so do you agree with Donald Trump's assessment of the Mexican people who come to this country? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest problems going forward is he is out of the box, he is unpredictable, and this is a field that in many respects wants that level of predictability so that they can craft and hone their messages. He throws a monkey wrench in all of that. The other piece of it, though, Mika, is he has base support. He's got an energy on the ground. There's a lot of what he says that not only resonates within the Republican Party, but outside the Republican Party. There are a lot of folks who look at the Mexican border the way he pronounced it yesterday. And I think that affords him the opportunity to not only be on that stage, but to say some things that are going to make the party very uncomfortable over the next few months.
But maybe tap into the base. Meacham, quick point. I'm going to
The counter case is it makes everybody else on stage look like Socrates. Yes, it could trip them up. It could be a sideshow, but it could also, you could take candidates who would otherwise not be that impressive, and they will look that much better by comparison.
I'll just say in a debate, if Trump goes after another candidate and they come back at him, they might look like Socrates, but they also might look like the loser in a bar fight.
This is the problem with
Socrates did
Trump.
not have a good record in bar fights.
But this is the problem, is that he doesn't play by a set of rules.
Sleepy eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
On the record, because they know he's kind of a media bully. You know what I mean? He does it. He plays by his own set of rules. He'll say whatever. He'll go on any platform to say it. And that's why I say, look.
Is that a media bully or someone who, doesn't?
We all have a responsibility here, I think, to say, has he earned his way on this stage? I mean, again, we're 4 years removed from a ridiculous spectacle.
Hey, Chuck Todd. Ben Carson's at the top of the polls. I don't hear you wearing sackcloth and ashes about Ben Carson.
The guy's legitimately trying to run for president. I think he's got putting out an actual agenda, doing policy speeches. Look, if this is what Trump does and he spends the next 3 months putting out some white papers
Ben Carson,
and taking
Ben Carson keeps comparing America to Nazi Germany, Chuck.
And I think it's something that he should be answered to.
I think your outrage is a bit focused on Donald Trump.
Well, look, I don't want to see the Republican primary race or any presidential race turned into a three-ring circus and us sitting there going, isn't this great? And look at the shiny metal object that's this. I mean, I think it's not fair to what is the strongest Republican presidential field in 36 years.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.